Oh, there he is. Alan's on. All right, Alan, I'm inviting you. Waiting, waiting, waiting. Connecting. Here we go. What's up,
Oh, hey,
Selby?
what's
How
going
you? No, not much, man. I got to stop touching my face. That's one of the main things I'm not supposed to do, and I find myself doing it more than ever. And now I'm filming myself doing it.
on? And you sound a little bit nasally. I'd be worried if I were you.
Yeah, it's just a little bit late at night. I was laying down. The kids apparently needed me to be in the room as they fell asleep, so that kind of happened. It's all good though. It's all good.
Shout out to Daryl Chesty Chambers who joined the chat down there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a good one tonight, Alan. You and I have a bit more of a following than Dana, who hasn't used Instagram in 2 years, does last night. So together we should, get some numbers, which will be fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, my
how was
goal
your
is to beat Dana and mainly just Corey. As long as I beat Corey, I'll be happy.
nice? How was your day?
Day's been good. I'm getting chirped. I could see from some of my followers down below for the
Yeah,
flow.
yeah,
Day's been good. Yours?
yeah, not too bad. I was telling some of the people before you signed on. I just try to hang out with the kids a little bit more today than the last couple days, and just had one of many millions of conference calls. And that was fun. You might notice I've added a piece of interior design to my house here today.
Back, I
Don't
was
tell
with
Kimmy.
you. Bought that jersey back in 2009, 2010.
Yeah, that's probably right.
I convinced you to get that one. You wanted the normal ones. I'm like, go with the vintage, which those should be our regular jerseys next year. So
Well,
yeah.
I was going to ask, when was the first time that you wore a Calgary Flames jersey?
When we made that bet that year and Flames beat the Leafs and loser had to wear the other team's jersey. So at the time I was a Leaf fan, but obviously now I'm hardcore Flames.
Of course. Yeah. That was a good day. I enjoyed that. I was happy I didn't have to wear the blue maple leaf.
Yeah, ugly jerseys.
Nice. All right, Alan. So we're gonna get. I like you've tuned in a couple times the last few days. I've prepared a few questions to kind of keep us on track, but I'm sure we'll get off the rails at some point. Anyway, so the first one is a little bit of your backstory, more on the personal side. Like where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Where did you go to high school? All that kind of stuff.
Uh, Grew up in Toronto, went to high school there. I was really into sports, obviously, in high school, but was never really good at any one sport. I was kind of jack of all trades, master of none.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so wanted to do something related to sports. Didn't know what. Teacher of mine suggested kinesiology. Ended up going to McMaster doing kinesiology. At the time, I thought I wanted to go into medicine after, but never really had like a strong desire to do that. So one of my profs suggested I try this master's course out in Calgary at U of C, which focused on high performance and clinical exercise physiology. I was really just interested in the high performance side. That's where I
Mhm.
met you. It changed my life forever, uh, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And then following my master's, took a little time off, went to Australia, traveled, came back, started working at this gym training hockey players. It was really like, yeah, it wasn't great, but started there, and then a couple months
We won't
later,
name any names.
yeah, we'll name any names. A couple months later, met Adam Douglas, who sent in my resume to Gary Roberts. Ended up getting the job there. Worked there for a few years, and then eventually moved on to the Hill Academy, just because there wasn't much work in the winter working at Gary's there. So worked at the Hill Academy, which is a academy for hockey and lacrosse players, uh, and I worked under Daniel Noble. Shout out to him if he's watching.
Oh, he
Uh,
just signed on the second you said his name,
oh,
which is
I did
hilarious.
you out, Coach Noble, so you just missed that. We just recorded a podcast, Coach Nobes and I, earlier today. He sends a heart face emoji there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Hill Academy is where I met Coach Noble, worked under him. We did off-season training programs in the summer. And then I ended up getting an opportunity to apply to the Stockton Heat, which is the farm team for the Calgary Flames. Got the job there, moved to Stockton, California for a couple years. And then, grind down the AHL, and then got the call up when they created an assistant strength coach position up here in Calgary. And I've been just finishing my second season. I say finishing kind of weirdly there because I don't know if the season's done yet or not with the Calgary Flames. And shout out to my intern Chesty who's listening and watching there, and Kalen too if he download Instagram just to watch this.
Well, congratulations, Alan. You skipped about 4 questions ahead on my thing during that spiel there. So now I got to freeball it a little bit. So you mentioned a couple people and a couple different places that you've been over the last few years. Tell me a little bit about some of the mentors that you met that are very memorable across the or from the down the line. So starting in maybe your undergrad and then during our masters together, and then from there. Mentors are influential people.
JSP coach who I met when we interned with the Hamilton Bulldogs, which I forgot to mention because I was just kind of skimming through all that because I'm sure people aren't that interested in my past that much. So kind of skimmed through that. Yes, I interned with the Hamilton Bulldogs while I was working at Gary Roberts. So some people I met who helped me along the way. Like I mentioned, Adam Douglas submitted my resume to Gary Roberts, which was a big stepping stone in my career. Obviously, working under Gary, having him as a mentor was huge for me in my career and learning. I was very green when I started working there. I mean, I had my master's, but in terms of practical experience, I was very green, so learned a lot from him. I already mentioned Coach Noble, Daniel Noble, who has been one of my biggest mentors by far. Taught me a lot about becoming a better coach and the art of coaching. Just backtracking a bit to school, I had mentioned a prof who recommended the master's program, as well as many other profs, Stu Phillips, Marty Gabala. They were awesome mentors. High school, I laugh because one of my gym teachers was one of my biggest mentors, and one of the reasons I got into kinesiology, and he actually went to jail a few years later. So I won't mention him by name. It was kind of, anyway, so skipping back ahead, so Gary, Daniel Noble, and of course my current boss, Ryan Van Asten, has been huge for me. He's the reason I'm in the, hey Cole, I don't need a haircut. My hair's awesome. Ryan Van Asten, the reason I'm in the NHL today. He gave me my shot in Stockton and brought me up to Calgary. So gotta shout him out. I'm sure I'm missing some people here, and sorry if I'm missing you. Obviously, you, Chesty, and my number one mentor. That's my intern who's watching. So gotta give him a little love here. But yeah, so those are some of my biggest mentors. I mean, you helped me a lot. I probably wouldn't have gotten my master's if it wasn't for you and those late nights we pulled in the office.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of people along the way who helped me.
Those were fun. Those were fun times for sure. And we did pull did we pull one full all-nighter? Which
I think we went till about 4 or 5 a.m. and then you slept over at my res on the couch.
Right.
A couple hours before our lab in the morning, but that was the night the Gina Hertz night. If you remember that one.
Yeah, just replacing some signs strategically to.
Pretty
Nice.
dumb, but it was funny to us at the time at 4 a.m. on campus.
Yeah, we were delirious at the time. Yeah. That's funny, man. So yeah, you were not that you were lucky. I mean, you obviously put in the work to go to these places and to finish up your school. But I mean, I'd say obviously I'm a little bit biased here, having gone to the University of Calgary myself for both my undergrad and my master's degree. But between McMaster and the U of C, I feel like you went to a couple of powerhouse schools nationally in terms of sports science. So some of those teachers you had during your undergrad, who kind of pushed you along a little bit, and then having the opportunity, because I mean you would have first met Ryan during the internship in the summer of our master's. Is that right?
That is not correct. I went back to
Not
Toronto
correct.
to the internship, and I interned under Albert Chang, thanks to Steve Lidstone, another guy I forgot to mention.
Right.
Who hooked me up with the Hockey Canada internship at McMaster, and then my clinical one was at York University from the Jamnik. I met Ryan. We had a project. We had to do a yearly training program, YTP, for an athlete of choice. I chose hockey player, and someone recommended, probably you recommended, I go see him because he was working with Hockey Canada at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we chatted with him for a few hours, and then we just stayed in touch over the years via Facebook and texting. And then, when the job came up in Stockton, he asked if I wanted to apply for it. So that's what kind of led to where I am now.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, that just really highlights the importance of, making those connections and maintaining them in some fashion, because you never know when it's going to come back to pay dividends.
Absolutely. I think it has to be sincere too. Like, if you're just wanting to take out of those connections, I think people see through that. So, my relationship with Ryan over the years was really just sharing knowledge and, sending each other book recommendations or articles and talking shop. And then never really asked him for a job, but because I, stayed in contact with him, he thought of me when jobs popped up.
Nice. Cool. Switch gears a little bit. So we talked a bit about, where you grew up in Toronto, went to school there. I asked this question just because it's interesting to me where other people's answers go. I mean, I grew up in Calgary, and I had a group of friends when I was in junior high and high school who, our lives have taken really, really different routes. One of them would have graduated high school, went to, more of a vocational type school, got a they're sort of, what am I trying to say here? A journeyman is a journeyman electrician, so he's doing quite well. But then there's a couple that didn't finish. One guy didn't actually finish junior high, and another guy started grade 10 and then kind of shut her down. So what are some of your high school or junior high, like your childhood friends doing nowadays?
So being Jewish, all my friends are doctors and accountants. It's not really an exaggeration. A lot of my childhood friends are, working in those types of fields or the family business, stuff like that. So I'd say, it was pretty unique in terms of the friends I grew up with to get into this field. And then going to McMaster, I have a whole, group of friends from the guys I lived with and stuff like that. Most of them are kind of in sales and those types of roles. Shout out to my brother who I just saw is watching there. I mean, not many people I grew up with kind of got into a similar, like, into sports, from what I could remember, really. But yeah.
Nice. What did you feel like you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were younger?
I think I wanted to be a hockey player, like most hockey fans. Obviously, I wasn't talented enough for that. So I remember doing this grade 10 project for social studies or whatever. We had to pick like what we wanted to do in 10 years. And I think I had to own a gym, which ironically now that I'm in this profession, it's not something I want to do because I see all the stress and overhead related to that. But I did end up doing something related to that. So, I think the dream of, training hockey players kind of came while I was in university, undergrad.
Nice. What, if you were to describe what your life is like, generally away from the weight room or away from work, how would you describe it?
Well, my wife is out here in Calgary with me, and so spend a lot of time with her outside the rink. When we do get days off, which is not often in hockey, we try to get out to the mountains and go skiing or hiking, especially now with the quarantine. Hiking's a nice isolated activity that gets us outdoors. One thing I took up this year that's been taking up a lot of my time, and I love it, is boxing. So the boxing gym here in Calgary, I've been going 3, 4, 5 times a week, depending on, how many games we have that week. But so that's been a big time sucked for me, but love it. And actually, just before this phone call, I was shadow boxing. It's great way to get into some conditioning while you're isolated in your apartment.
Hence the greasy flow that you got going on right now.
Yeah, and shout out to Fresh to Bond who's watching, and just he's one of the coaches at the boxing gym I go to, Impact Boxing. So shout out to him. I see he just commented.
Very nice. All right, so we've talked a little bit about obviously working with working in Stockton with the AHL team, and then now in Calgary. Give us an idea of what a day in the life of maybe a minor league strength coach is versus a NHL strength coach.
I don't think it's that different. There's more resources at the NHL level. So day in the life in the AHL, kind of arrive at the rink about, say, 7 a.m., and then, you're prepping whatever you need to do for the day. We didn't have catapult down there, which we have up here. So shout out to Adam Douglas if he's watching. I know you're interviewing him tomorrow. So catapult's kind of the first thing I do in the day is just set that up, get it ready for the guys, get workouts up on the board or whatever. And then, guys start rolling in, and you're just kind of in the gym present for guys, chat them up, make them feel, make them want to be in that space, right? So try to be friendly, good presence for them. And then, you're available if they have any questions in terms of stuff for warm up or whatever. And then, guys go out on the ice. Someone runs catapult. So right now that's generally been Ryan Van Afton. I've been training injured guys while the team's practicing. And then post-practice is when most guys will generally work out, or if it's a game day, healthy scratches will work out. Then we get nice break in the afternoon, sometimes get staff hockey going on the Saddle Dome ice, which is awesome. Otherwise, just getting a workout and a steam. Then guys start arriving about 3 hours before the game, and again, we're just available if they need anything. Guys will play sewer ball. We bring out a stereo and let them know the time on the clock so they could start getting ready in dress and stuff to go out. When they go out, a couple healthy scratches will generally work out during the warm-up or first period. And then I'll just watch the rest of the game and put out shakes for the guys, post-game shakes. And after the game, we usually have a post-game workout. So that's typically a day in the life of both in the NHL and AHL. Not a lot of differences, just more resources in the NHL and a lot more food provided, which is nice.
Yeah. Sounds like long days, though.
Yeah, they're long, but again, it's fun. I mean, most of that isn't necessarily hard work. It's, being present, being around the gym, hanging out with a bunch of hockey players. It's pretty cool. And then, you get that break in the afternoon on game day, which you could go home or leave the rink. We usually just stick around and work out and steam and hang out as a staff. Ryan, myself, Chesty, and Kalen, and we often will do something like journal club or just talk shop in that time as well. So
nice. So you guys will generally do a group steam?
Group steam, yes.
That's key. Those who steam together learn together. Dream together. There we go. That works better. Yeah. Nice. So you talked a little bit about the resources that are available at the NHL level. You and I have talked a few times, and that I'm pretty into sport tech and monitoring and tracking and having some data behind to back up the training that we're doing in the weight room. Is there anything that you can share with us in terms of what you guys use or what you guys really like and how you use it?
Yeah, I see Adam Douglas just joined. He missed his shout-outs earlier, but going to shout him out again here. We use Catapult. Adam's our contact person on that, so if we have any issues, he helps us out. So that's a big one, and force plates is another monitoring tool we use. We try to do force plate testing at least twice a month, and gives us an indication of any, asymmetries and readiness as well. We have a couple players that will wear heart rate monitors in addition to Catapult on the ice, which is nice to have that internal and external workload monitoring. Besides that, we do weigh-ins every time we do force plate testing and body composition 3 or 4 times in the season, blood analysis a few times in the season. That's kind of generally what we'll do for monitoring in season.
Cool. Very nice. We need to go back to something a little bit more personal, I guess. I'm going to put you on the spot because I'm going to ask you just a question to, if you can think of a story, like what's a story that you feel like would be super interesting to tell right now? I'll tell you where okay, I'll while you think, you can sort of listen to me. I was talking about this last night with Dana, because Dana's huge into hunting, right? That's his big hobby. And he, as he was kind of thinking, I was thinking about this Jim Rome. You and I used to, I used to tell you about Jim Rome all the time, right? The Jim Rome interviews and Steve Elkington. Yeah, so Steve Elkington is an Australian golfer who was on Jim Rome all the time, and he's just full of stories. The story I was thinking about with Dana last night was because I'm sitting on my couch looking out my window over there. Was he was on talking about hunting deer from the living room. And anyway, so do you have any deer hunting stories?
I don't have any deer hunting stories. I got an embarrassing story that if Dylan's still tuned in here, Dylan Dubé will appreciate. So this summer we do hill workouts generally in August, a couple days a week, where we will do different plyo drills and sprints up a hill, and we usually finish with a full hill run. It's right across from McMahon Stadium, if you know the hill I'm talking about. So it's a pretty long hill, and we divide them into two teams, so it's a little competitive. Losing team has to do an extra rep. So one team was a man short. So I'm like, oh, I'll hop in, whatever, just hopping in cold. Thought I'd join in. And our team had about a hill lead. So that's about a solid 15-second, 20-second lead. And then I'm paired up against this big jacked Russian guy who's just a machine. And so I'm going up, and I think I'm doing okay. And then all of a sudden, I see him like right beside me near the top of the hill. I did finish maybe 2 feet in front of him, but I probably had a 40-yard lead up this hill. So it was pretty embarrassing. It was a good way to lose a lot of respect from the athletes I worked with in the summer. But you know what? I tried. And then because my team ended up losing, even though we still had the lead, even though I lost a big portion of that lead, we still had it when I was done. So I blame Michael Stone. I did the extra rep with them because I felt bad that I basically lost them this competition. So I guess moral of the story is, if you're going to hop into something, be it like if they're deadlifting and you jump in or something like that, make sure you could not embarrass yourself.
Hey, it shows vulnerability, right?
I guess so.
Man, so that reminds me of a good story. So, obviously I work with women's softball is one of the sports that I work with, and I now travel a fair bit with them. The very first training camp I did, and baseball was a sport that I played growing up, right? So, I thought it would be, they asked me if I wanted to go out into the field to shag pop flies during batting practice. And I was like, yeah, this will be awesome. So I go out there and I'm just kind of cruising around, and, generally it's just the pitchers, talking to each other out there. They'll go walk over to a ball every once in a while, but it's literally the first time I was on the field with them. And I more of the players had gone in, and so there was a bit more of the outfield to cover, and I figured I had a shot to kind of do maybe an over-the-shoulder catch or maybe a diving catch. So I took off for a ball, went to lay out over top of my shoulder, and just kind of, it was almost like the ground came out from underneath me, and I get up, and I had just exploded my hamstring. So I was limping around, for the rest of that day, and I was trying to conceal the pain and stuff like that, but I sort of told our physios afterwards. I was like, man, I think I just blew up my hamstring. Like, do you guys want to take a look at this? And so they're like, yeah, that's pretty bad. So the next day we got on a bus to go from Toronto to Chicago. And, that's about a 10-hour-ish, maybe 8-hour, you have to go across the border and all that stuff. Kenzie Friesen just showed up. I can't remember if she was there or not. Ken's, just give us a thumbs up or thumbs down if you were there when I blew up my hamstring in Toronto and then we went to Chicago. Anyway, the next morning the next day we're doing a cool down, and I hadn't even seen this yet. We're doing a cool down, and I'm wearing shorts and we're kind of stretching, and I'm showing, I don't know, a hamstring stretch or something like that. And one of the girls was like, Scott, what's on your leg? And it was purple. Like the entire back of my hamstring was purple. It looked like it was painted. So definitely did some damage, and it was fairly embarrassing. I still get chirped on that like every day.
Well,
Yeah.
I still get chirped on the hill thing every day too, so you'll never live these things down, eh?
Exactly.
Speaking of strength coaches getting hurt, we played softball this summer. It was about half of us was staff, like Flames staff, and the other half were like Stockton Heat and Flames players, and then our wives and girlfriends and stuff. And our first game out, our AT, his wife, who's also an AT, and our head strength coach, Ryan, all pulled their hamstring running.
Oh, man. It's easy. It's so easy to do, apparently.
It's so easy to do when you're 40 and hopping into an activity cold.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Hopping, we preach the warm ups. Lead the warm ups, do the warm. So like every day, it's anytime I go out under the field now with a glove to shag pop flies. It's like, Scott, did you warm up? And that's in the back of your head.
Beard's getting a few grays on there,
Yeah, I shaved on Monday, and I figured I would not shave the rest of this week and see if I can grow a beard, but it's not looking good yet.
Your quarantine beard?
This is a quarantine beard, exactly. And I've, mixed up the hats. Actually, this is the exact same hat I wore last night and the same direction. But anyway, yeah. Alan, I saw you take a sip of something. I've asked everybody else this so far. If you had to say your favorite drink, whether it's beer, whiskey, gin, wine, whatever it is, like what's your go-to?
I'm definitely big into red wine ever since living in Stockton because there was not much else to do there but visit wineries. So it kind of got me into California, Cab Savs. So right here, I got this one's actually Australian, I think. It's called 19 Crimes. It's not very good.
Yeah.
It was on sale. So it's my weekday drinking wine. So, I thought I'd mix it up. All your other guests were drinking beer like real men, and I'm here drinking red wine.
That's okay. Well, did you ever meet my friend Ryan McCallum?
Yeah, I hang out with him all the time, actually.
Exactly.
No,
you guys were actually in my wedding.
I hang out with Ryan occasionally. I love that guy.
You guys were in my wedding party together, so of course that was a stupid question. The point of bringing him up was I remember as kids, not kids, but like 18 to 21, Ryan refused to drink anything but Smirnoff Ice, which I thought was hilarious.
He seems got a lot of tattoos for a guy who drinks Smirnoff Ice.
Yeah. So if you're talking about manliness and drink choices, don't worry too much about that.
I see my cousin commented underneath there about Cali Creamin', great beer from San Diego. It's like a vanilla ale. It's really good. So that's
nice.
You guys were all about your craft beers the other interviews this week, so that'll be my craft beer recommendation. Cali Creamin'.
Cali Creamin', nice. I went back to the Multinate Reality, the New England IPA from North Brewing in Dartmouth for tonight.
Very nice.
All right, Alan. This is a time when maybe I'll ask anyone who's still watching us if you guys have any questions for Alan or for me to go ahead and fire them up on the screen. Otherwise, Alan, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. How's quarantine life with 3 kids and how's it treating you?
Yeah, man. It's tough because you're kind of in this weird, just like Groundhog Day-ish type scenario. Like, you do 2 loads of dishes every day. You watch the laundry pile up. I try to do work because obviously I'm, still gainfully employed, which is nice. But, Kimmy works for herself, so she's got to work equally as hard or harder to make sure that she's able to, produce some stuff, sell some stuff, and keep money coming in on her side. So we're trying our best to share it, but she, currently is taking the lion's share of the kids. So she does school hours every, not hour, multiple hours of school type stuff every day while I'm kind of in the office. And then I'll try to give her a bit of a break by taking the kids to play somewhere, if we can go outside. Today was like a crazy snowy, rainy day here in Halifax, so did not go outside today. which, probably showed Jackson got sent to his room at 6 o'clock and wasn't allowed to come out because, yeah, that kind of stuff's kind of happening a little bit, I think. So tomorrow and Saturday is supposed to be nice. So hoping we can get outside, play some baseball, play some street hockey, make sure we keep people sane. But yeah, no, it's been weird. And, talking to more and more people, the estimated time of returning to normalcy seems to be getting pushed back more and more.
Yeah. So I got another question for you. In terms of us for programming, we kind of sent out 2 versions of programs for our players. One for guys who have some equipment, and then one for guys who have no equipment, just sending out body weight workouts. For your athletes, I mean, obviously the news the other day, your Olympics is postponed till 2021, but I'm sure you don't want them completely detraining in what could be a couple months of this. So what have you been doing for your athletes?
Yeah, it differs sport by sport because we kind of took the guidance of our head coaches and HPDs, not necessarily in what specifically to do, more along the lines of what like how much contact to have with the players for the first little bit, even if it's being virtual contact, just to give them some time to process for themselves this information. So initially I had with softball what I created. This was kind of before the news that the Olympics Canada was not going to go to the 2020, and then that it was pushed back to 2021. So what I kind of created for them was essentially a 3-day program, similar to what I would normally do for, as a general program. But then, had kind of exercise A, exercise B, exercise C. And, if you had perfect access to equipment, you did A. Moderate access to equipment, you did B, and if you had nothing, you did C. And it was sort of regressions of each other, or lateralizations of each other. So that's how I kind of tried to tackle it there. With the canoe kayak athletes that I work with, I tried, the main thing I'm trying to do is have them maintain strength, because they're very, very very strong athletes for sure. Maximal strength is a big piece. So I'm trying to work more on isometrics, either maximal isometrics or even just holding positions for extended periods of time. Again, just to try to get that sort of high strength stimulus. And then
sorry to interrupt, for the maximal isometrics, are you doing kind of that towel stuff that you were videoing earlier this week?
Yeah, so I have them doing some towel stuff for sure. And then some other strap type work. So if we're trying to do some positional stuff in a seated kayak position, where they kind of have a strap around their back and they tie it to a tree or a pole or something, and then just maximally apply force to it, kind of rotationally. So that's the other piece there. So yeah, towel. And then I'm trying as much as I can to convince people to build this bad boy and use some chains. But so far, only Chris Chapman has taken me up on that offer. So he's built one, and he's using it up in the high rises of downtown Toronto somewhere.
So it looks like we got a couple questions down here. One is from Chesty, who's my intern.
I see that.
And this is a question for you. He said, provide a brief overview of your sport and what are some important considerations are needed to ensure athlete preparedness for competition. Classic Chesty, not big on the whole grammar, but that's all good. So yeah, let's throw that one out to you.
Me, yeah, and then Sean Preston here, who's currently in Hong Kong hanging out, but I think you know Preston as well. He's got a question that's directed to you, so you can take that one afterwards. Yeah, so I work at the Canadian Sports Centre Atlantic in Halifax. I work with 3 national teams. Each of them are female national teams, which is interesting. Of course, it wasn't really by design; it just sort of ended up that way. So I work with. I work with women's softball, women's gymnastics, artistic gymnastics, and then I work with women's sprint kayak. So to be honest, the main theme for, especially, it's continued to come up actually over the last couple of years, is just strength and ensuring that athletes are strong. I know that might sound like a weird cop out for a strength coach to say that, but I've collected tons of data and tons of competition data to kind of back that up. So, the stronger, especially relative strength wise for speed purposes, and, in gymnastics for vaulting and tumbling, just really seems to be very related to performance in their sport. Obviously, it's not a direct link. There's some other things that have to be in the background. So, it's just trying to get those pieces that they don't get in their sport. So obviously in gymnastics, they do tons of conditioning. Movement is awesome. They do lots of high rep plyos, high rep strength endurance type stuff. The piece that they don't get is that max strength piece. So that's kind of what we've kind of cued in on. Obviously taking into consideration a full, preparation phases and all that sort of stuff. But we kind of go there, and that's what we like to focus on with them. And it's kind of similar with the other sports, to be honest. The monitoring that I do, that wasn't really a question in there, was it? But that's okay. I've started using push bands, push technology with softball, and we monitor vertical jump for our kind of readiness piece. And then, I use the yearly kind of trends that I see to individualize programs, use it as a bit of auto regulation, and make sure that the athletes are getting what they need at the right time. So anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know if that really answered the question, but
I think it did. I think if he wants to learn more, he should listen to our episode of the CSEP podcast. So I'm hosting season 2 of the CSEP podcast. Selfless, shameless plug. What's the word I'm looking for?
Shameless plug, yeah.
Yeah, and Scott Wilgris is a guest on one episode, and he goes into more detail on KPIs for gymnastics. So I'll tackle Coach Sean P's question here. He said, how do you keep tabs on your guys in the off-season, monitoring programs, etc.? It's a great question. So we actually have quite a few guys who stick around in Calgary training. Most are probably Stockton Heat guys, some junior guys, and then we have a few Flames as well. And then we'll have some guys come and go throughout the summer. So that helps actually seeing guys face to face. And then in the summer, we're doing force plate testing on them weekly, as well as some sprint testing monthly. And then for the guys who we don't see in the summer, we try to stay in contact with them, be it text or call their strength coaches, talk to their strength coaches, and just kind of keep tabs and talk to them either weekly or bi-weekly. Some guys may need a little more attention than others, but most guys are really good about doing something. And I find in the NHL, most guys are with someone reliable, whether it be an Andy O'Brien or Gary Roberts or Matt Nickel. Most guys are with someone who have a good track record, and you're not too worried about their training.
Alan, would you guys generally provide something for those guys to go home with, or recommendations?
So we do give out programs to all our players. We use the Bridge app for that. Love it. It's been great because there's videos, and then we could see who's doing it from a distance too. We do have a couple players who live in kind of more rural areas where they may not have a strength coach or, just a personal trainer, not someone who's really versed in it. So they'll do our program, and then we could see that because we could see who's doing the program on Bridge. And if they have any questions, they could ask it through the Bridge app or text or call us. And so that's been actually really good. That was new this year. In the past, we just sent out PDFs to all like a booklet. This year we started using Bridge, and we really like that.
Cool. That's one of the neat things about talking to all you guys back to back to back. I think Corey, he didn't mention this on the podcast whatever this is the other day, but Corey's using the Bridge with the Chicago Cubs, and he's just kind of starting to scratch the surface with it, but seems to like it. And then Sean Preston, who's on here as well. We were talking the other night, and he's in Hong Kong right now working with their National Olympic committee or sport organization, and he's using the Bridge as well. So I'd never heard of it before. So it just kind of gives me an idea of what else is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've used other ones in the past. I like it the best. I mean, they're all good. It's definitely not cheap, so it's nice to have our resources to be able to afford that. But I find it's the easiest to use from other ones compared to other ones I've used in the past.
Cool. Well, if we don't have any other questions from the audience, which is kind of growing, like we're doing it, we're doing it right now.
I think I might have passed Corey Kennedy, so he can, he can eat it because I definitely got at least 2 more viewers than him. Okay, so.
Yeah, Ryan McDonald, he led off the week pretty good too on Monday night. We peaked at I think 18, so that's
Oh, I think that's higher than I got. I think our peak was 17, but Ryan McDonald's a pretty good looking dude, so understandable.
There he is there too. He's still watching.
Oh, now
boosting our numbers.
You heard me say that.
Anyway, man, it was nice chatting with you, and we got to do this more often. The last time you and I chatted, it was with Mariko, my 4-year-old in the picture, just breaking her brother's breaking.
You're like, this is my life. This is quarantine.
yeah, just that literally what she was doing was going around finding anything that Jackson loved and smashing it, and that is essentially what life is like.
Well, enjoy the next 2 months of this, and yeah, that should be fun. But thanks
you too, buddy.
Here today, I had fun chatting with you, and thanks for tuning in to those watching.
Yeah, next time we'll get Ayanna and Kimmy on, and we'll do a group chat.
Four-way chat.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah.
All right, talk to you later, man.
All right, bye.
Bye.